Hello out there, my name is Laolu Akonde and you are on to Inside Sources. But first, here is my take for today, entitled Time for Elite Consensus. Now, there has been a lot of controversies about President Olusegun Obasanjo's recent speech in the United States, where he said that Nigeria is now a glaringly failed state. He also said that the former president was Baba Go Slow and the current president is Emilokon. President Obasanjo actually depicted some of the real situation that the country is going through. But our point is this. Number one, we don't want a situation where people like the respected President Olusegun Obasanjo, former president, who was former president 3 times, we don't want a situation where they are weaponizing the problems of the country in order to remove a current president and put in another without us addressing the fundamental problems of the country. This is what I mean. The problem that we have today in Nigeria, as we have seen, is not just a political leadership problem. That is indeed a problem, but it is much deeper than the political leadership problem. So that means that if all our former leaders who are statesmen, if all they are focused on is how to change a president and bring another president, which we have seen in the past, it will not solve the problem. And so in 2015, we saw a coming together of so-called progressive forces to build a party, APC, that defeated PDP and promised us change. Guess what? 9 years after, we are still expecting the promise. What is now happening, in my view, is that people like former President Olusegun Obasanjo, they are beginning to gather again and try and find ways to use the real problems in the country as a weapon to get out the current incumbent president. Now, they do have a right to do that. But as a former president, a statesman, my view is people like Obasanjo ought to be more interested in the deeper problems of the country. The deeper problems of the country includes the fact that the political leadership that we have came out of what we have become as a people. And so, without us addressing that, we will just be playing in a cycle of bringing in the same kind of political leadership character that cannot transform our country. And so we need people like President Olusegun Obasanjo to lead that charge, to go outside of the political context and develop an elite consensus where we have former leaders and other leaders outside of politics to define the minimum standards under which Nigeria should never operate. If that will include constitutional changes, let them propose it. But a situation where a former president, like President Obasanjo, who actually had 3 terms, from 76 to 79, from 1999 to 2003, and 2003 to 2007, he had 3 terms of 11 years. Somebody in that category is also fairly part of the problem. And so it is not very morally elegant for President Obasanjo to just be calling the current leaders names. That will not solve the problem. We need him and people like him and people that are outside of the political terrain to begin to come together, a concerted effort that is not partisan, that is not just targeted at attacking the current leaders, but something that can transform our society. And it starts with people like them, including Obasanjo, to own up to part of the responsibility for where Nigeria is today. President Obasanjo cannot say that he is not partially responsible for corruption in our country. President Obasanjo cannot say that he is partially not responsible for how the rule of law has been violated in the past in this country. There are few problems in this country that President Obasanjo's hand cannot be traced to. And therefore, in order for him to present a credible front, he cannot come to pontificate. He can come to own up to his own errors, and then we will reasonably consider him to be morally, properly situated to lead the charge to transform our society. And that is my take. Inside Sources will be right back. Welcome back to Inside Sources. Today, as we continue the conversation on the future of Nigeria, we have a formidable Nigerian woman, an eminent elder stateswoman, who is also a human rights activist and an environmental advocate. I'd like to welcome to Inside Sources, Madam Han-Kyo Briggs. Thank you for coming to Inside Sources.
Thank you for having me.
All right, thank you. Now, just to open the conversation, I'd like to ask you, Ma, that if you look at where we are today as a country, do you think we are moving in the direction of that great Nigeria that many of us believe is the destiny of this country?
The one-word answer will be no. That would be the one-word answer. I'm happy to say that when we refer to a great Nigeria that today's Nigerians are looking forward to, that they have not seen. And yesterday's Nigerians, some in my age group, have experienced in the past before independence. If we compare the hopes and aspirations, irrespective of then the issues of independence and the issues of trade and all of that, what we were looking forward to just before independence. And today, what we have on ground, the difference is so unbelievably vast, it's exacerbating that we are a country that has been well educated, has very brilliant people, whether it's in the economy, whether it's in politics before this time. And yet today, we can honestly say that we have very brilliant personalities and very achieved people if you compare those achievements to what Nigerians do outside of Nigeria in all areas and spheres of development and politics. And you compare the type of people we have in politics today, you will see that there is a huge failure that has started creeping in. And we just watched to a very large extent. Maybe there was a time that we objected to it, and yet maybe 2-3 decades after the military, 2-3 decades after the resistance, even with Nadeko and people like the present president at that time being in the forefront of changing Nigeria, and then seeing the Nigeria we have today, the Nigeria we had yesterday, and the Nigeria today that is actually under the president, today's president. Something has gone drastically wrong with the hopes and aspirations of Nigerians of yesterday. And therefore, I don't see the Nigerians of today actually being able to change, to make those changes, rapid changes, I would call them, that will bring Nigeria forward. It's worrying.
All right. So, quite a lot of issues in your opening comments. Now, let's just see how we can go a little deeper. So, at what point, Madam, will you say, this situation that you described, which is quite not flattering, at what point did you think Nigeria got diverted Are you able to say in your perspective?
Yes. Fortunately for me, and luckily for me, I say fortunate and lucky because I believe that's my destiny. And I grew up in Nigeria in the 50s. I was born outside of Nigeria and in the UK, and came back with my parents when my dad finished his education. And I grew up in the creeks. When I grew up in the creeks, because I can only cite the creeks when I'm making my examples. When I grew up in River State, that today, what is River State, but we were in Eastern Region at that time. If I recall the education system, the education that I got, my primary school was in Abonima, my community. Already at that time, we had lawyers, we had judges, we had politicians, we had engineers. My dad was a marine engineer. I had uncles who had read law. And so I experienced and grew up in already a development, if you like, in process. And Nigeria, not just my area, Nigeria, Yorubas, Igbos. I mean, Ojukwu's father was very rich, and Nnamdi Azikiwe, people like that were well educated. And so if you look at that Nigeria that I grew up in, my view of Nigeria then is different than the view that some people have, maybe even someone like you or your age group or people just slightly younger than you will have. And so that expectation and looking forward, for me, dashed when the issue of the military emerged in the first coup. During the war, I was in my teens then when the Nigerian war started. And I knew what happened in the north because I could see the aftermath of what was going on, how people were being killed and being put on trains and things to be sent back downwards to where they originally came from, mainly the eastern part of Nigeria. So that was the beginning. We could see very clearly, and I admire later Obafemi Awolowo for that. When you look at what he did with what he did with cocoa in Western region and other resources, I admire him for that. Today, you look at everywhere you look, they tell you this is what the West was able to achieve. Media. That's why the West is so prominent in media. The legal field, all areas of media. And then you go up north. They had granite and other things, cotton and things that were being exported. And all was being utilized within their space. The law allowed them to keep 50%. And so when you come fast forward after the war and you hear about oil and gas. And you also realize that during the war, just before the war and independence was when we were told by the British and by the oil companies that they were lifting oil in commercial quantity. I think they claim that they are doing it in 1958. I want to believe, and I do believe, that they were lifting oil, that is, in quote, stealing oil, before they actually admitted that they were actually doing it in 1950. So in my opinion, then, when I begin to package all these things together, the pinpointing for me is the war. After the war, even though Gowon said there is no victor, there is no vanquish, the reaction to the people who are supposedly have lost the war was actually of a people that have lost the war, that have been conquered, because I lived it, I experienced it. I was not told. I didn't read it in a book. I experienced the war. I saw what happened to the Igbos and people perceived to be from Eastern region. and how they were treated after the war. And we just allowed it to go on and covered it with what we call what is today the Youth Corps service. Or if Ankyo finishes university and goes to some remote area in the north and gets to study, gets to understand how they do things, when they wake up, when they go to bed, what they eat, that somehow that's the magic answer to the future, the political and economic future of people who were in their teens when the war ended, if you like, people who were 18, people who went back to school and all of that, that somehow it was going to solve the problem of Nigeria when you have not really solved the problem of what really led to the war. What led to the war? Some people felt that the people who perpetrated the coup were from a particular place, i.e. Igbos, which is really not very true because some of them are non-Igbos, and that they concentrated on killing non-Igbos. Somehow, if you look at it, yes, because there was really nobody from Igbo and like a politician that was killed, but people died while that was going on. And so that bitterness grew. And it didn't go away. We didn't resolve our issues. We just papered over it. And so that is where we are today.
Okay. I mean, quite a very comprehensive review that you've given and, quite insightful. Thank you so much. Now, so what will then be your own specific postulations, now, because your argument is that, look, this thing started during the war, after the war, we tried to paper it. It seems in your view that we are still doing a lot of papering over the issues. So what would you rather prefer we do, even at a time like this, if your view is that the problem has persisted since that time up until now?
I can authoritatively present at least my own view, as you have requested that I do.
Yes,
now,
please.
first of all, we have to, as Nigerians, we have to understand and accept the meaning of justice and fairness. What is justice and what is fairness? It's amazing that Nigeria is a massive country in Africa, the largest Black nation in the world, that is Nigeria, that is blessed with all manners of resources that some other people don't have, that they need and want and must have. But the continent of Africa was identified with using the word very sparingly, where Africa was identified by a non-African or by non-Africans as Africa. So therefore, all the people that make up Africa are today recognized and seen and accepted by Africans as Africans, but the identification was not made by Africans. That's one aspect of it. The second, so it's about ownership, therefore. It's about owning who you are. And Nigeria became Nigeria from joining together what a non-African had created at a time called the Southern and Northern Protectorate, which then became Nigeria in 1914. So what that meant and still means is that you brought all kinds of people together. You and I are now Nigerians. You are from Western Nigeria. I am from Niger Delta. Niger Delta is a geographical area and location, whichever way you look at it, you can't take it away because that's how God created it.
Right.
And it doesn't matter that the white man is saying that it is a Niger, it is a Delta, whatever it is called. That is what it is today. So a Delta area. Now, you and I, coming from different geographical areas, are automatically different people. That does not mean, in my opinion, that does not mean it makes you any less of a person or me any less of a person. If we then choose to become Nigerians, or anything we choose to call ourselves, that's our choice and our decision to make. And before we make that decision, we will have had to, if we didn't, then that's part of the problem. And it is part of the problem. We would have had to sit down face to face as you and I are talking now and agree that, you speak a different language, I speak a different language. I have colonial old deities, if you like, before Christianity came. And I want to accept yours and you will have to accept mine. So the conditions under which we can live together as whatever we choose to call ourselves will begin to emerge. That didn't happen.
I think your points are well made, that we have identity issues. The Europeans came here and then they said they identify Africa, gave us the name of Nigeria, compelled us to come together, but in 1960, it became entirely up to us, and between then and now, we have not, based on your perspective, just, picking back on what you said, we have not sorted out that issue in a comprehensive or conclusive manner so that we still have those issues. Now, so that is a legitimate argument, but the other side of it is that we have been in charge of our own affairs, and let's look at even the way that some of the resources have been managed. A place like Niger Delta, since 1999, for instance, got some kind of derivative principle, which meant, and I'm not saying that this is entirely how it should be, but at least in 1999, there was some kind of political understanding that said, look, we got to give the people of Niger Delta something extra, 13% extra. Between that time and now, why do you think we haven't seen a significant transformation of the condition of the people of Niger Delta? Why do you think can we continue to point accusing fingers to the history, or can we even point accusing fingers to the fact that, look, this is the resources, these are resources, we don't get enough of it. After 1999 up to now, trillions have been given to the states, and many people don't think that those resources have been sufficiently well used. What's your view? I'd like to hear your view, ma'am.
Absolutely. Anyone who has followed my antecedents and my views on things to do with Nigeria as a country, and as if it affects the Niger Delta people, where I can and do and will continue to speak authoritatively. And that is simply because I have experienced it, as I keep saying.
Yes.
Now, there is nobody that a true Niger Delta person who have lived from the moment of 13% derivation. Mind you, in brackets, I do not think that that is just and fair. We can come to that later.
Yes.
But whether it is 0%, which at one time we had nothing coming from oil and gas,
yes,
or whether it was 1% or eventually 13%, I do agree with people who ask the question that what have you done with the 13%? But like people who read the Bible and sometimes stop halfway of a verse. And that's why when pastors teach, they have chapter 1, verse 12b, or chapter 1, verse 12a, because that's what they have picked.
Yes.
When I want to hear the question, when I hear the question of what have you done with the 13%, I want to hear as a comma after that question, comma, what has the federal government done with the 87%? Absolutely. I think that would be
I agree.
fair. Okay, fine.
Yeah.
Now, what are the people who are responsible, if you like, for the Niger Delta region, the politicians? What have they done with the 13% that they have been given? Well, I will say to you very quickly that is what I mean when I say bad governance. See, when we talk about bad governance, in my opinion, I'm never only referring to the federal government. Bad governance goes all the way down to local government, because local government is the first point of governance for the people, because everybody comes from a community and the local government is made up of communities. So is there a responsibility by politicians to me and you? Yes, of course there is. And that is where it starts. But in starting there, it is also at the federal level. Therefore, how do we solve this problem of bad governance at the state level and even at the federal level? The problem is the same. You have bad governance at the federal level. In most cases, the party of the federal level. And where I'm going now is that there is a problem with our politics.
Yes.
And it is the politics that is supposed to deliver the dividends of democracy that will give us good governance and will give us a better future. When we have wrong people, when you have a PhD holder or a master's degree holder or a specialist in economics rather, now advising somebody who will say, you can advise me, I can appoint you as my advisor in economics. It doesn't mean I will have to take your advice. So what then is that advisor in economics doing with somebody who does not understand economics? Like, I'm not an economist, so I cannot in any way speak outside of what the cost of a tuber of a yam is. And I recently bought a bag of rice anticipating Christmas, which is like 6 weeks away. And I figured, let me buy it now because it's already 125,000 for a bag of rice. So when you look at a government that will appoint advisors and yet don't listen to those advisors, you cannot have a good government. So it's not only at federal government level, it is also at state level. When you see a state like the oil producing states, we have 4 major oil producing states. And you see states like Akwa Ibom, Delta, Bayelsa, River State that make so much money, and they get 13% of that money. And somehow we don't see the benefit of that 13%. Yes, I agree. We should ask the questions, and we do ask the questions. And when we get the answers and they are not acted upon, then you can't blame the person who's rightly asked the question, who is now an enemy, if you like. By doing what I'm doing, I create, if you like, concern for my family. I create concern for my friends that say, you can't say that. You know, some people will get offended. No, I can't keep quiet because I will get offended if I keep quiet. So, yes. So I need to be able to balance the two sides. The two sides. Now, for instance, let me use the issue of NDDC before you even raise NDDC, which I'm sure you will. Let me bring the issue of NDDC and give that as an example.
Okay.
NDDC was created by Olusegun Obasanjo. When Olusegun Obasanjo came on board from, I mean no disrespect, but from jail to presidency, when he made that move, there was already the struggle to remove Abacha by some eminent and respectable, and we ought to always be grateful to these people of Nigerians that stuck their necks out. Some died, some were jailed, of which Obasanjo is one.
Right.
Now, when we now go to that area of discussion, there was UNPADEC before NDDC. And UNPADEC was an agency. Before UNPADEC, there was the Basin Authority that was created for the Niger Delta, which was born out of the meeting before independence that said, look, this area called the Niger Delta area is neglected. They bring a lot to the table. They are afraid that a bigger Nigeria, an independent Nigeria, will further neglect them. So we had Rivers State. But before then, before independence, these authorities were created to help us. Were we helped by those authorities? No, we were not. Why we were not, we may not have time to go into it, but we were not. So every agency that has been created for the Niger Delta, speaking with experience with the ones that I came to meet, starting from the Basin Authority all the way up to the NDDC. I look at the NDDC and I describe the NDDC as an ATM for failed politicians, disgruntled politicians, and politicians that sometimes have had their electoral wins taken away from them and given to somebody else.
Okay.
That's just the truth.
Yeah. So
let me just land with this. So now, where I'm going with all of this is to show you that you may have a Niger Delta person in charge of the Ministry of Niger Delta, but I tell you authoritatively that those people are not 100% in control of the money that is supposedly allocated to the Ministry of, to the Niger Delta Development Fund. The Niger Delta Development Fund is owed money. The Niger Delta Development Fund, politicians go to the NDDC and ask the NDDC to fund certain projects. Recently, the president called on the NDDC to fix, he said fix, F-I-X, fix the road, the east-west road between Sapele and Warri, or Sapele and Asaba, something like that. NDDC is not supposed to fix a trunk A road that belongs to federal government. NDDC is not supposed to fix that. NDDC is supposed to use the money that it gets, when it gets it, within the Niger Delta, for the Niger Delta people, by the Niger Delta people. That's not what's happening.
Okay, man. So a very, very interesting analysis. But I wanted to, give you a flip side of it, and then I'll hear your take. So based on what you have said so far, I'm actually drawing from your postulations, it would seem that the major problem, it would seem to me that the major problem that we are dealing with in Nigeria, which is the bane of where we are today, is also the major problem that the people of Niger Delta are dealing with, or the people of the North, or the people of the Southwest, or the people of the Southeast. So now, it will seem to me that our attempts, and I say this, with all due respect, to all sections of the country, our different attempts to try to localize the problem, while it is understandable, namely that, the people in the Niger Delta will say, look, just like you have argued, that, look, that is supposed to be federal government, or, we don't get enough. The people in the Southwest will make similar arguments. The people in the Northwest, the people in the Southeast, everybody makes this kind of arguments, generally. And they have different supporting evidences, that actually, some of them sound legitimate. But my point, and I will say this, and I would like to hear what's your opinion. My point is that it seems what we need to deal with is, first of all, number one, since after 1960, our political elite, whether it's the military or the civilians, have chosen not to resolve the identity issue. They have chosen to use it as some kind of bargaining chip among themselves, to get whatever they want, to draw up the card. That's a problem. And it's a general problem. It's not just the Niger Delta or the North or the South or the Southeast or the West. This is what our political elites do generally. And the second point is that, to that extent, therefore, we have suffered as a people, whether you are Yoruba or you are Hausa or you are Fulani or you are Ijaw or you are Igbo or you are Kanuri or you are Efik, the mass of our people have suffered from this tendency of the political elite to even not resolve the identity issue or be accountable for the resources. So 87%, you're right, federal government mismanagement, 13% Niger Delta mismanagement. Put together, it's the political elite that we have had since 1960, particularly 1999, that we have democracy, that are responsible. So it will seem to me that the way to solve the problem is to have this holistic concept that, look, the problems are not sectional problems. The problems are the problems of the kind of political elite that we have, regardless of where they come from. Madam.
I absolutely agree with you. And I think the thrust of my presentation in this conversation at every step of the way is landing exactly at the point where you're describing. It's not the ordinary fisherman or periwinkle picker in my area, or the farmer in Benue, or the cattle rearer in the north. That is the actual problem. The actual problem is how politicians use the difficulties that we encounter as a people due to their bad governance and due to the fact that they are the wrong people to govern us, that they are the wrong people to be in charge of our future, to be in charge of our today. The people we have there are the wrong people. If they are the right people, they will all resign. All of them. They will resign, except, you can say all, except a few. I wouldn't name those few that I think today in Nigeria are standing up for the people. I wouldn't name them. But there are not too many, but we have politicians that are standing up for the right thing and for the people of Nigeria. Now, these things is what has led us today to high inflation, to the point where we are borrowing to service what we have borrowed. It will go on forever. It's not going to end. So it is up to the people. Where you have 200 and something plus million people, and the people who are causing this problem, this mismanagement, who are looting the resources of the people, are less than a million. Even if they're a million, and we are 200 million people, there's nothing they can do to us.
Certainly.
Is that we lack the courage. Nigerians lack the courage. If everybody is speaking the truth as they feel it, that this is, look, I'm seeing this problem. The oil companies are part of the problem of pollution in my area. Now, nobody else can understand the issue of pollution when we talk about it. But when you have a constitution that says we should have a livable environment, and you don't have a livable environment, and we're still using that constitution, where are you going to get that livable environment?
Exactly.
So that is why you have people, great minds like our leader today in the movement of the Patriots, that have existed since Sir Rotimi Williams was the chairman of that group, Dafinone and people like that. So these are great minds that have.
You're talking of Chief Emeka Anyaku.
Yes. Yes, Chief Emeka Anyaku. And these are great minds that saw as far back as 1999, 2000, where we will be today in 2024. That a man like Emeka Anyaku, the late Ben Wabweze, have driven even later Sir Anthony Enahoro, whom I had the privilege of also knowing and working with, that came up with the People's Constitution before and just after the 1999 military constitution that was given to Obasanjo. We need to change our constitution. Look, we need to accept that there are faults in Nigeria, as you and I are analyzing. Agreed. And we need to begin to drive the conversation towards empowering our people. That yes, there is fear in the sense that who wants to die? I don't want to die. Why should I die? But yes, But you see, if we want to collectively benefit from a country like Nigeria once was described as the giant of Africa. About 10 years ago, I removed the GI from the giant and left the small caps A and T, because if you look at our economy, if you look at our the usage of our resources, if you look at our leaders, whoever they are, even if he's my father, whoever they are, we have become ants. We have become ants in the world, in the eyes of the world. And in my own eyes, because we can do more, much more than we are doing.
Because of our time, you'll be surprised how much time we spent already. So I wanted you to speak about the state of the nation in more specific terms, but I thought maybe it might be useful, if you choose to actually bring it, since we've talked about the problem quite a bit, to bring your views in terms of the things that you would rather want to get done. So if you have, as a matter of fact, you're a member of the Patriots Club, and the Patriots Club actually met the president with the idea of doing a new constitution, that we should have a referendum and all that. So I wanted to ask you, Madam Briggs, that if you were to get the attention, or if you were to advise the president, the sitting president, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, what are the high points that you think he should be focusing on? What are the main things? So then let's talk about the state of the nation from that perspective, if you will.
From the perspective of where he is today, which is the president of Nigeria, the issue of inflation, the issue of the value, the economy, let us say, totality economy, one side, our generation, one side, security, one side, addressing our fundamental issues and crises. What are those? Those are the fact that we are different people.
No, madam, what do you want him to do? That's what, I want to be...
he must address these issues. I'm putting them in the pockets in which I believe that if he began to address these issues, I don't know, he should have people who are experts in the economy, for instance, and get them to begin to advise him across the 36 states what he should be doing. Now, should that involve a new constitution? We're saying that it should, because there is a lot of things that will change if we have, if Nigerians sat down together and come up with a constitution, half of the questions will be answered. So he has to address these issues that makes a country to run. How does he address them? He has to get the right people. I can't address the issues of the economy of Nigeria. If he picks me, I'll tell him no, because I don't know how to address.
Let's begin home, man. So I see your point. Of course, so you've raised the areas, the sectors that you think you should pay particular attention to. So let me ask you directly then. What do you think you should do regarding Niger Delta? The situation in Niger Delta, what do you think you should do specifically?
In Niger Delta, if anybody tells you that they don't want to own, control, and manage our resources and pay tax to federal government, they're lying. Because that is the greatest desire of the Niger Delta people. So that's number one. Number two, Niger Delta people should be picked by their competence when it comes to, if you want to discuss Ministry of Niger Delta, for instance. Ministry of Niger Delta was created by the late Yaradua. There was a reason that he created it. So just removing, because the president is advised or believes, I want to believe that he was advised, because if he did it by himself, that would be terribly wrong. So I want to believe that he was advised that it was the best thing to do to scrap the Ministry of Niger Delta and let everybody have a developmental agency or commission. And then somehow that's going to be the solution. That's not going to be the solution, because I now have to ask you, who's going to fund this developmental commission? Is it the regions? Because it's called the Regional Development Commission. Is it the 6 states that are in the regions? What are the regions? Because we don't work with regions right now. We're working with geopolitical zones. So I'm lost when I hear regions. Are we going back to regionalism? If we are, we have to discuss it. The president can't decide on his own. Then we can assume that we are now restructuring Nigeria. If we're restructuring Nigeria, the president alone cannot restructure Nigeria. He has to take my opinion and your opinion into consideration. So there is a lot to be done. Look, we can't fix that. Let's not even imagine it. We cannot fix Nigeria even in 1 decade unless we have the right people to fix Nigeria, not people coming to tell us, I can fix it, give it to me, I can fix it. And you give it to them and they are unable to fix it. No, let Nigerians choose the people they believe are going to fix it. So let Niger Delta people, let Yoruba people, let Igbo people, let Kanuri people, let these people make their decision as how it works for them. Does that mean they're going to leave Nigeria? Of course not. Who are the biggest yam growers in Nigeria? Who are the biggest pepper? Who are the biggest ginger growers? Who are the biggest oil producers or gold producers? Let us begin to look at what we have already to develop our region and our people. In the case of Niger Delta, we have been developing Nigeria since 1958 with our oil and gas. We want to use it to develop ourselves. And this is part of the problem. It's a pity that we're not able to discuss River State. I don't know if we can do.
I will. And that's why I want to wrap it up, because our time is fast spent. I wanted to ask specifically regarding River State. We know that right now there is a major crisis of leadership. The governor and his godfather have gone their separate ways, and that seemed to be affecting, the tone and the temperature of the state. The question that I want to ask you regarding that is, shouldn't there be a way where the elders in River State can compel both Minister Wike and Governor Fubara to reconcile in the best interest of River State? And this is a question that, again, is not peculiar to what is happening in River State. I mean, one of the things that I find confounding is that we have all these issues, problematic issues among leaders, godsons and godfathers, and then it blows into the open. But there are elders. You know, in my language, it says that that you cannot have elders in the market and the head of the children carried in the backs of their mothers should be warped. That because elders are there, they will straighten it out. Why are the elders in Rivers State, and like I said, this is not peculiar to Rivers State, but I'm asking you about Rivers State. Why are the elders in Rivers State unable to bring Wike and Fubara to reconciliation?
We have, through this process, we have had elders that have emerged as political elders. They have emerged, they are political elders, but they have actually emerged as elders. We have elders, look, I belong to a group that was, that is about a minimum of 10 years old. A minimum of 10 years old. That group is called the Elders and Leaders of Rivers State. They are from APC. We have APC members in that group. We have PDP members in that group. We have former governors in that group. We have former deputy governors in that group. We have politicians in that group. Now, that group I belong to, we reached out to both the governor and the former governor when this happened. Until today, we have not been able to interact with either one or both of them based on the reason of why we wanted to interact with them, which is the crisis, the political madness, I call it, in Rivers State. I call it political madness simply because, look, I see no reason why there should be a godfather and a godson or a goddaughter in politics. I see it. I don't see it. It's unnecessary. Now, you then ask yourself, if we say that there is a relationship of godfather and godson, did this godfather and godson, did they approach the elders when they were going into this godson and godfather relationship? No, they didn't.
I'm sure not.
So, exactly. So you would then see you would then be able to justify their resistance to our involvement or the involvement of elders. Let no one disrespect the elders of Rivers State by constantly asking, are there no elders? Are there no elders? My age qualifies me to be an elder, and I am an elder.
Absolutely. Absolutely, ma'am. We introduced you as elder stateswoman.
Yes, stateswoman. And because I speak the truth to power, it doesn't matter who then is in power. I am an elder that can be depended upon because I speak the truth. There was times that I have had to defend Nyesom Wike. And even when he became minister, I have had to defend him when Dr. Gumi attacked him. Why should he be the minister of Federal Capital Territory? Yeah. I will forward my piece to you after this time. I have defended him after he left office in Rivers State. Now, we have a governor he himself, the former governor, accepted that he's not a small boy. You may look at him by his age that he's a small boy. But because he has a red pen, you cannot treat him like a small boy. Because that authority of the seat of the governor of Rivers State, if whether you claim you brought him or you did, one man with one vote cannot in any place make anybody a governor or a president of a state or of a country. So the claim that somehow one person is disloyal or one person is ungrateful is actually disrespectful to the seat of the power of the people of Rivers State by somebody who is a civilian now, just as I am. The only difference is that he is appointed a minister. That does not make him more of a Nigerian or more of a Rivers person than I am. And so I have equal rights and equal say when it comes to Rivers State. Now, whether the former governor likes it or not, I don't see how what he calls his structure should destroy a state like Rivers State. And this is where I and Q Briggs, a daughter of River State, will hold the president accountable to a particular level, not all the way, a particular level. President, you appointed the former governor of River State as your Federal Capital Territory minister. He is working under you. You can fire him. You can retain him. The governor of River State, Mr. President, you cannot fire him. He was voted in by the people of River State. What is happening in River State, if the president continues to be silent, is that the president is going through the back door to remove a governor of Rivers people that Rivers people voted for. And we will not accept it. We will not resist it. So when we blame the governor, the former governor of Rivers State, for what is happening in Rivers State, the president, it will surprise you, the president takes a large extent of that blame. The president claimed the 27 lawmakers that abandoned their constituents and went over to APC. He referred to them, as we are told, in a meeting as his children. Therefore, those lawmakers we will not accept them back as lawmakers. They are not lawmakers. They will become lawmakers when they run for election, whenever the INEC decides it will run election, and they win election. Therefore, if we have only 4 members in the House of Assembly who have not abandoned their constituents, then they become the 4 lawmakers that we have. And any elongation of maintaining the 4 lawmakers is being done to us on purpose, because we want our lawmakers to be in the State House of Assembly to represent the people of River State.
Okay.
It cannot be decided. This is not the time where this representation will be decided by the courts. It will be decided by the people of River State by allowing them to vote.
Thank you so much. It's a pity that that our time is fast spent. And I must say, Madam Briggs, that your contributions have been very forthright. And like you said, I think it is true if we look at your antecedents that you indeed speak truth to power. And we hope that not only just in River State, but we're talking about River State now, we hope that the elders will be able to prevail on the situation. But like I said, it applies to every other part of the country. Thank you so much for coming to Inside Sources. Thank you for your contributions. Thank you for your human rights advocacy. And thank you for your environmental advocacy also. And thank you for being a worthy elder stateswoman.
Thank you so very much. I'm very honored. Thank you indeed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And there you have it, another edition of Inside Sources. Like we always say, we believe that Nigeria will prevail. That is why we are here. And so we will not relent. We will continue to speak what has to be spoken and push for what has to be done. My name is Laulu Akonde, and I'll see you again next week. Thank you for watching.